We are continuing with our subject of hymn histories, and tonight we're going to be looking specifically at Isaac Watts. Isaac Watts was a very prolific songwriter, and we have several of his hymns in our hymn books. In fact, there's one in there that is not, I didn't find listed in his background information, but I did find the song and someone to sing it. Isaac Watts, I want to consider him in this lesson. He was born in 1674 in Southampton, England, the eldest of 9 children. He died in 1748. He was called the father of English hymnody. He was the first prolific and immensely popular English hymnist. He is said to have written around 6,000 hymns during his lifetime. Of course, not all of those have come down to us. Probably the good majority of those have been lost down through the many years. Isaac Watts was named after his father, who kept a boarding school. His father was also a deacon at a chapel and was a nonconformist. A nonconformist is one who did not go along with the established church, which in England was the Church of England, or the Anglican Church, whichever you want to use. I think Anglican came a little later, but it was the Church of England. His dad was thrown into prison 2 different times for his controversial views. Isaac's mother often took him and sat on the cold stone by the prison wall. During his childhood, he loved to read. He became skilled at writing rhymes. He learned Latin, Greek, and Hebrew. As a teenager, he attended the Nonconformist Academy at Stoke Newington in East London. He was unable to attend Oxford, Cambridge because of his nonconformity. Now, the Church of England had such a stranglehold on things that if you were not part of the Church of England, you didn't get to do some things. So after 4 years at Stoke Newington, he went back home to live for 2 years. When he was 16, he began studying with Reverend Thomas Rowe. He practiced his own method of study, but was overworked and became weak and sickly for the rest of his life. So while he was at home, he complained to his father one Sunday about the horrible state of congregational singing in churches. The congregational singing was limited to the poetry of the Bible, mostly the Psalms. Each line was first read by a deacon slowly, and then followed by the droning of the congregation. They still do that in Jamaica, by the way. The song leader will say the phrase that's to be sung, then the people will sing that phrase. Then before they finish, he says another phrase, and so on until it's done. Their choruses are quite lively, but the hymns, they will drag them out so slow that it'll put you to sleep. That's just a Jamaican way of doing things. I can imagine that singing in 1700s was like that also, especially what Isaac Watts was complaining about. He supposedly said, the singing of God's praise is a part of worship most closely related to heaven, but its performance among us is the worst on earth. So with him saying that, his father challenged him to write something better, and so his career began. Thus, the first hymn was written before the evening service began and was received with great enthusiasm by the congregation. He was 20 and still living at home when all of this happened. The churches then only sang psalms, and Isaac wanted to do something to improve the music. First, He wanted the poetic quality of the Psalms sung in church to be improved. Then also he believed that the hymns should contain some New Testament theology. So in 1707 to 1709, his hymns were published. He wrote a new hymn every Sunday for 2 years, and the songs were sung from manuscripts in the Southampton chapel. Now this doesn't say Sunday morning, Sunday night. I guess I am reading into this that this was just one service on a Sunday. So that's 52 Sundays, that's 104 songs just for that church. He spent the next 6 years of his life as a tutor for the sons of Puritan John Hartop. Do you remember the difference between the Puritans and the Pilgrims? Well, there were two different groups. When he was 24 in 1699, he became assistant pastor at Mark Lane Independent Chapel of Southampton, London. Watts preached his first sermon when he was 24 years old on July 20th in 1698. He became the pastor 3 years later, and then he pastored there for 46 years. A year after Watts moved into the Hollis house, his health started failing, and Samuel Price became his assistant pastor. The chapel moved to a new place. Isaac got a serious illness that lasted for 4 years and was in confinement for a long time with a slow recovery. In 1712, while he was suffering from the illness, he was invited to stay with Sir Thomas Abney and his family at Theobald. After he got better, he stayed there with them until he died. He acted as a tutor to the children and chaplain to the household. During this time, he devoted his time to writing. He wrote about 60 books dealing with a wide range of subjects. He became a renowned theologian and logician. Because of this, he wrote many books and essays on these subjects. He left behind a massive legacy of hymns, treatises, educational works, essays, etc. And you know, it's sad that we don't have but very, very little of his work that has survived down to today. It's said that he commented, quote, "My design was not to exalt myself to the rank and glory of poets, but I was ambitious to be a servant to the churches and a helper to the joy of the meanest Christian." He wrote a popular textbook on logic that was published in 1724, and it went through 20 editions. It was the standard text on logic at Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, and Yale. Now, the first two are English colleges, and the last two are American colleges. It was used at Oxford for over 100 years. His work was influential among the independents and the early religious revivalists in his circle. Because of ill health, he was unable to preach regularly. Isaac was not a very nice-looking person. He was frail and often sickly. It is said that in addition to being frail in health, he was rather grotesque in appearance, being 5 foot tall, having a big head, and a long hooked nose. Watts never married, but he had 2 good friends for 30 years. There was a lady that, quote unquote, fell in love with him reading his poetry. But when she saw him face to face, she did not like him anymore. He was disappointed when Miss Elizabeth Singer would not marry him because he was so ugly. She said she liked the jewel, but did not admire the case that held it. So Isaac never married. But he always loved children and wrote much for them. Now let's take a closer look at some of the hymns that Isaac wrote. He was the pioneer in including non-biblical poetry in Christian worship. He opened a new era of Protestant hymnody. When he was forced to cut back on his preaching because of his declining health, he spent much of his time in writing hymns with a desire to, quote, Christianize the Psalms with New Testament message and style, unquote. There were two particular trends in his verses: emotional subjectivity and doctrinal objectivity. The same principles in writing hymns today is the same as Isaac Watts established. Some of the more recognized hymns that he wrote are the first one, Alas, and Did My Savior Bleed? He wrote the words to that one. In fact, he wrote the words to all of these. Am I a soldier of the cross? Or sometimes you'll see that one listed as soldier of the cross. At the cross, I sing the mighty power of God. Jesus shall reign. I had never heard of that one before I doing the research on this. And also the other one, I sing the mighty power of God. I didn't know about that one either. Joy to the world. I'll have more to say about that one. O God, our help in ages past. Had never heard of that one either. This is the day that the Lord hath made. Now I want to say something about this one. I searched and I searched and I searched. All I could come up with was the child's version. This is the day. This is the day. You know, real snappy jingle. It has the same words. But that wasn't the original song. I finally found, and I'm not going to give it away, I'm going to wait. We're marching to Zion. We still sing that one. When I Survey the Wondrous Cross. And there's another one that you'll see when we get on down there, because there was one in our hymnal that wasn't in this list. But I have included it in the songs that we're going to be listening to. Isaac Watts never wrote the music to any of the songs he wrote. He only wrote the words. Someone else always wrote the music. And we'll look at those music writers when we begin to look at individual hymns. It's really hard to choose which of his hymns to use as the song to which to listen. And so instead of just one song, I have gotten many songs for you to listen to tonight. Two of his songs that are listed above here are many times thought to be as being one single song. Alas, and Did My Savior Bleed? And At the Cross. But in doing the research for this, much to my surprise, the music to Alas, and Did My Savior Bleed? Was entirely different from At the Cross. Although the words are the same of the stanzas. But at the cross, there is a chorus that is given. Let's just listen for a while. We want to first listen to Alas, and Did My Savior Bleed? concludes with a final beautiful verse. Such a new setting gives the words renewed luster. This is a modern version of the music. There are many different versions of the music with the same word, but the depth of this song is tremendous, thus allowing for the many different music scores. So the next one is going to be the same words for the most part, and we sing this one very frequently. We're going to listen to now At the Cross. This is sung by the Charity Ministries Congregational Singing. That's all the information that I have about them. All right, those are the two main ones, or at least At the Cross, we're more familiar with. But he wrote many others. And we have several others in our hymnal, and so that's what we're going to do with the rest of it. So this next one, let's listen to We're Marching to Zion. We do sing that occasionally. And this one is also sung by the Charity Ministries Congregational Singing.
Come we back on the Lord and thy rejoicing love. Join in the song with sweet accord. Join in the song with sweet accord. And thus the sound round and thus and thus around the throne. We're marching to Zion, beautiful, beautiful Zion. We're marching upward to Zion, Zion, most beautiful.
I love a cappella singing when the singers know what they're doing. The next one that I want us to listen to is "O God, Our Help in Ages Past." And this is sung by the Kleinwood Church of Christ. I think they are located somewhere in Texas, if I remember correctly.
O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal hope. Under the shadow of thy throne, still may we dwell secure. Sufficient is thine arm of hope, and our defense is sure. Before the hills in order stood, o'er every seeker refrain. From everlasting thou art God, to endless years the same. Our God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come. Be thou our guide while life shall last, and our eternal home.
I did not know that one. So that one was a new one on me. The next one, "When I Survey the Wondrous Cross," that's one that is in our hymnal as well, and we do sing that on occasion. This song was written in preparation for a communion service in 1707. The original name was "Crucifixion to the World by the Cross of Christ." The practice of the day was to summarize a hymn's theme in the title. So it was first published in 1707 in his collection, Hymns and Spiritual Songs. It was considered to be one of the finest hymns ever written. Charles Wesley reportedly said he would have given up all his other hymns to have written this one. It was the first known hymn to be written in the first person. It introduces a personal religious experience rather than limiting itself to doctrine. It was one of those hymns of human composure, and it was considered to be very controversial. This was a break from the standard. This was a new thing. It had never been done before. However, it gave Christians of Watt's day a way to express a deeply personal gratitude to their Savior. Let's listen to "When I Survey the Wondrous Cross," and this one also is sung by Charity Ministries or congregation singing.
When I survey
Tell you what, many a time I've shed tears in listening to these old songs. Very stirring. The next one is, Am I a Soldier of the Cross, or A Soldier of the Cross? This is sung by the congregation at the Temple Baptist Church in Powell, Tennessee.
And I a soldier.
This next one, you're going to chuckle at this one. This is the day that the Lord hath made. And I want you to get the jingle that the little ones and young people sing. Forget that. That's an adaptation. This is the day that the Lord hath made. It's sung by the old German Baptist Brethren Church. This rendition is probably the closest to what Isaac Watts had written and that was sung in his time. All right, the next one, I did not know either. Jesus Shall Reign. And this is sung by the St. Michael Singers. That's all the information that I have. And I don't have any idea who they are, where they're from. And this was a hard song to find as well. Jesus Shall Reign. highly suspect that was a Catholic choir.
It sounded like a pipe organ.
The next one we'll look at, we know very well. We usually sing it during Christmas time, and that's Joy to the World. But ironically, this song by Isaac Watts was never intended for Christmas use. At the age of 45, he sat under a favorite tree on the Abney Estate property where he lived, and he penned the lyrics for this song. It is based on the last half of Psalm 98. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Verse 4, verse 8, let the rivers clap their hands. Let the mountains sing together for joy. Let them sing before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth. It was included in the 1719 hymnal, Psalms of David, imitated in the language of the New Testament. The original title was Messiah's Coming in Kingdom. And despite its lack of reference to Mary, Joseph, shepherds, angels, wise men, or the manger, it became one of the most loved Christmas songs. So now let's listen to the Charity Ministries congregational singing of Joy to the World.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare Him room, and heaven makes her sing,
This last one is When I Can Read My Title Clear. It's sung by the congregation at Temple Baptist Church in Powell, Tennessee.
Second verse, should earth against my soul engage? Everyone do your best together. Should earth against my soul engage, I regards the earth, then I can smile and sing and praise and face the frowning world, and face the frowning world. Smile and sing and us to repeat that fourth verse. How many of you think you have it now? Move it right along. Any of you growing up as a boy or girl out some yonder place sing this great old song in church? Would you raise your hand? Well, I don't know where you were, some of you, but I heard it back in some places where I preached as a boy, and people loved to sing it. And could they sing it? They sung by letter. They opened up and let her fly, you know. They enjoyed it too. Let's enjoy this fourth verse again. Then shall I bathe, then shall I bathe my weary soul in seas of heavenly rest. Then on a wave of trouble roll across my peaceful breast. Across my peaceful breast. Across my peaceful breast. Then on a wave of trouble roll across my peaceful breast. Now, Rachel, do you ever remember us singing that song here before? I don't remember it either. But I know it, and I saw it, and I wanted to sing it. And I appreciate you just jumping right in there and playing it. Let's sing it once just without the instruments. There shall I bathe my weary soul in seas of heavenly rest, and not a wave of trouble roll across my peaceful breast. Across my peaceful breast. Across my peaceful breast. And not a wave of trouble roll across my peaceful breast.
The power of a Christian song. There's something about a fine old hymn that can stir the heart of a man, that can reach to the goal of his inmost soul, such as no mere preaching can. It's more than the tune of the song he sings, and it's more than the poet's rhyme. It's the Spirit of God working through these things that gives them their power sublime. So we thank Thee, Lord, for the fine old hymns. May we use them again and again as we seek to save from a hopeless grave the souls of our fellow men.